Hello guys, I hope we're doing good and alright. Today is part 4 of the Confident Dyslexic, and I'm excited for today because today we are talking about how to increase your skills and be comfortable in all situations. And today we're going to dive a lot more deeper into what are things that you're actually really scared of that are a lot to do with your dyslexia, like the reading, the writing, and how you can actually become confident at that. Because what you're probably thinking is look, Theo, I want to be confident, and I feel confident by doing these things I done in step 3, but how can I be confident with reading? I can't read. How can I read out loud? How can I, be confident doing things because I got a stutter or because I can't spell or with my writing? And today we're going to talk about the ways that you can become confident in it. Feel comfortable. I want to change the word confident to comfortable for this. Feeling comfortable in yourself when you're doing activities that have previously caused so much stress and so much maybe trauma in you into something where you feel a lot more comfortable doing. In some cases, it can actually empower you. Right, guys, I hope you look forward. That's on today's episode right after the intro. So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be? Or in other words, conquer their dyslexia. That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast. So guys, part 4, how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, how to learn basically how to increase your skills and how to be confident no matter what you are doing. So if you remember, in part 3 we talked about even the most confident people on earth sometimes don't feel confident. They feel fear, they feel nervous, they feel scared, but they do it anyway. They take action anyway despite the fear, because once you keep on taking action, the fear gets less and less and less, and you train it in yourself. I know that with me. If there's something I want to do, still now to this day, something I want to do, or a person I want to talk to, or go over there and do this, I'm nervous, but I feel the nerves go, okay, it's fine, it's natural, but I'm not going to let it stop me. It's better for me to do it than for me not to do it. Let's go over there and do whatever. And that's like a muscle that I try to build. So when we use that in mind, we've got to take that understanding with us and try and apply it in the area that we think is impossible. When I say we think is impossible, I mean that's what I think is impossible, and people I've spoke to and coached would agree that thinking, feel comfortable reading, feel comfortable writing at the same skill level you are at now. It's not about improving your reading and improving your writing and improving your memory and all this so that people don't notice there's something different about you, but it's about being comfortable being bad. Being comfortable sort of mucking up, being comfortable in doing it. And for this, I want to say a little story about confidence, and it's about feeling comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Because I remember working in school. Working in school, and I was sort of taking up this class when COVID was happening. And so I was sort of moving, I wasn't supposed to be moving on from class to class, but 1 week they said, okay, you're in this class, you can't leave this class, this is your bubble, as it were. And the teacher had to go out to do something, and he played a video, and I was looking after the class, really young kids, 6, 7, no, 5, 6 maybe. And after the video finished, they were looking at me. What do we do now? I'm and I remember in the class before, so he was reading them a book. I was we'll read a book. Why not? And I was one of you go and get a book. And we found this book to read. And I remember having it in my hand ready to read it. And I thought, I can't really read aloud to a bunch of people. For me to read, I have to be fully focused on the reading. It's not an easy task. But you mean having to act and be in front of kids, it's going to be challenging. And I remember I was okay, let's do this. Let's see what happens. And I was okay, let's get through the whole book. It's like a children's book, so maybe 20 pages long, maybe a few lines each page. Not a lot, big pictures. Think about a dinosaur or something. And when I was reading it, I was stuttering a lot, and I was getting words wrong, and I was very nervous, and I was sweaty. This is a little while ago. I'm not comfortable now with reading like aloud, and it was challenging. And I remember the teacher walked in halfway through the book. She saw me reading, and she knew I had dyslexia, and she's quite like a really nice lady. And so she sort of like sat back in the classroom, didn't really make a noise, because kind of like I was in charge in the class then, and I was in the middle of reading, and I was struggling a lot. And then we got to the end, and I was like, oh, thank God we got to the end, because it was painful. Like, I would make mistakes. The little kids noticed I made mistakes. I would stutter. I would make things up. I would skip over things. And at the end, I was like, I was like, okay, who found out that I was struggling reading? Who noticed that I struggled a bit reading? And most of the kids put their hand up. And I said, why do you think I'm struggling with reading? And they were saying, well, we don't know. Maybe you find it hard to read. And I was like, yeah, I do find it hard to read because I have something called dyslexia. And I said dyslexia is very, very common for people to have. But dyslexia makes you hard to read and hard to do other things, but also you better at others. And I was saying, just because I find it hard to read, does that mean I shouldn't read? They said, no. And I said, just because I find it hard to read, does that mean I'm less smarter than all the other teachers? They said, no. And we were like, and I was talking to them for a bit about how people are different. You mean like with diversity and stuff? How people are different things. Like I'm really good at my imagination and say like my storytelling, and like understanding people. But I'm really bad at reading, writing, and remembering my sense of direction and finding things. Lost my phone the other day. Told you this, but with talking to them and sort of like we were talking, and I think like it was really, really nice to empower them. I'll use the word empower, like educate them that people are different for your own example. Because little kids like that, they in their mind they think everyone can read perfectly because they've been to school. You mean they've been to school? This is a teacher who works at the school. He should read perfectly, and that makes total sense for someone that young to believe that. But it's really empowering to educate them about people are different. Just because you find it hard to read doesn't mean you can't read, or doesn't mean you can't learn. Doesn't mean you'll be able to read perfectly like the others. But I remember sort of like sitting back, okay, and then the other teacher, and the teacher took took the lead, sitting back, and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool, because I remember I flipped something that I was so nervous in, so scared to go and do it, so scared to go up and speak to something that's like actually empowering, like, yes, show my struggle, like face forward and use it as an educational tool. Because now I'm doing two things. One, I'm not letting it stop me, not letting my dyslexia stop me and doing it anyway. Two, I'm educating people in the best way possible by showing them an example about what I can do about, like, look, I find it hard to do it, but yeah, I'm still doing it. Just because you find it hard, just because other people can do it better than you, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. You should give it your best go. And so, guys, I want to say this story is like a lesson, is like how we can turn things around. I'm not talking about studying for hours and getting better at these skills that are so hard to learn for us dyslexics. What I'm talking about is learn to love the pain, learn to love being in an uncomfortable situation, and find an empowering meaning in it. Like when you spell something bad, when you have bad handwriting. Say you're dyslexic. Say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic, or use it as an educational tool. And like people you work with probably know you find certain things hard, you can't do it. And some, like a lot of times it's happening like a little bit of me now in work, because in Thailand people don't really know what dyslexia is that much. So when we talk about dyslexia, they're like, oh, what is it? And because the kids not really normal dialect, people don't understand it. It doesn't mean about 20% of the population isn't dyslexic. They're still neurodiverse in that way. They're just not as they are ignorant in the knowledge of it. That's not a bad thing. It's just the way we're developing. Okay, the way they're developing. That's fine. I think in the next, I don't know, at least 10, 20 years, there'll be a lot more awareness on it here as everything develops in the education. So people can get to at the point where you're talking, like people know you'll find certain things hard, but you're not talking about why. But once you start opening up, saying, okay, this is my dyslexia, this is how it affects me, and not in a negative way, it's like, oh yeah, this is who I am. Oh, sorry about that, I'm dyslexic. They go, oh, you're dyslexic, that's quite cool. And they go, yeah, it is. Also, another way I'd find it really funny when like we're in a team meeting or whatever, let's go and try and write something. And I was like, and I'm like, well, I'm happy to do it, but no one about to read it, read my handwriting or get it spelt right, and sort of like use it like a humor of like, if I'm chosen on to write, I'm like, all right, everyone, prepare not to read it, and have a humor in it. Like, all right, everyone, this is my weakness. Sorry about it. Like, get used to it, and sort of don't beat yourself down like it should be any different, because it isn't. That is the way things are. So you better try and accept it and make the most out of it. So guys, how can we actually use this moving forward? What are our steps? So first thing we've got to realize, okay, what are our real like weaknesses, things that we have so low confidence on? Could be reading, writing, the typical ones, remembering names, speaking in public, all these things. And about how, if you can't really get better at skills, like something like speaking in public, that's a skill. You're not dyslexic in that skill. You can get better at that. But with reading and with writing and with remembering lists or names, you can improve it, but it's hard to improve it to the amount where it's not noticeable for other people. So we've got to look at, okay, how can we be comfortable in the situation and find the empowering meaning behind it? And this really comes from you. This really comes from like you really dedicating yourself to, okay, I'm going to be comfortable doing this. And how can you laugh when you're doing something you used to fear? How can you face it head on and do something, even though, yes, you feel scared, but you do it anyway, and you're trying to laugh, and you make humor, or you try and teach it as an educational purpose. And all it is about finding a more empowering meaning from it. Okay, guys, I really hope we can start to take those actions, start to look at the list about the things that we find hard, and really how can we start to be comfortable in those. And it's really about improving our skills. So if you look at the amount of actions we take, like, okay, normal things we do, and the things that we feel confident in and unconfident in, and definitely reading and writing and probably remembering is definitely on the list, and organizing is on the list of things we feel unconfident in. So how can you feel confident? How can you own it in a way that not like you're like treating it as if it's not an issue, or not as in you're sort of like putting it to the side and ignoring it or completely being fake about it, but you're being truthful. It's there and you understand what it means, but also you find it empowering. Because let me tell you something, the way you talk about, the way you handle your dyslexia is the way that other people will perceive it. If you're like, oh, I'm so sorry guys, I'm really sorry, I'll be a burden to your team because I've got dyslexia, they won't look at dyslexia very high, because they're learning off of you. You're an education person to them. Like for example, it's like if I say to a person, like, oh, I've got dyslexia, and like, oh, my friend's got dyslexia as well. They think dyslexia is what their friends got. But it's not. Dyslexia is very diverse. Where they judge it off of the person, saying that's their spouse, their boyfriend, their girlfriend has it. They judge it off of that one person, what dyslexia is. That's the way they learn. And if they're learning off of you, if you speak about it in a negative way, they think it's negative. But if you speak about it in a positive way, like in a humor way, and use your example about the other things you can do, then they look at it completely differently. Okay? So you've got to realize that that's a really important element about handling it, or about talking about your dyslexia. And another thing you do is just sort of like, if you don't 100% feel it, just big it up, so then they believe it, so they feel like, oh, dyslexia is not that bad, or quite empowering in some ways. So we've got to start doing that and really try and working on improving ourselves. So it's all about finding more of an empowering meaning. So guys, that's your task for part 4. Find your empowering meaning for the things that you find really hard, and start doing those and consistently doing it, because it won't work first time. You just got to do it again and again and again, and open up about it. Open up about your dyslexia to the people around you. And I think if you open up in an empowering way and stand firm, people will admire that, and people will start understanding dyslexia better. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I'm excited for part 5. Part 5 is the ending part. Guys, I hope we're doing what we said in part 3. That's the most important part about being confident. But this is kind of like rounding off the cake. This is having those little things that you can do to not just be confident, but be confident forever about in anything you do, guys. Please take action on part 3, and definitely on part 4. look forward to talking to you about part 5. Take care, farewell, and bye.